For the University of Texas at Austin, right now we have not made any changes to our SAT or ACT test scores. We still require either or. If we need to make any changes, we won't announce those till we get closer to our August 1st application kickoff. And so, but right now they are still required. Our test scores though are not due till December 31st. So it is important to just remember you do have some time for those. When it comes to subject tests, we don't require those for admissions, nor will we consider them in the admissions process. However, some of our honors programs will encourage students to just share their scores with us, but for the admissions part, it's not anything that we will look at for subject tests.
So Trinity University has actually announced this year to begin a 3-year test optional policy. And this is actually in direct response to the limited testing that has really started in March. And so for students that are still submitting testing, you can either submit that through the official test scores, or you can self-report either an SAT or ACT, but it is not going to be required for admission, nor will it be required for merit scholarships. So we have had a fairly upfront scholarship program the last few years that have been a bit of a combination of test scores and GPA, and obviously we will be reworking that scholarship program as well to reflect that change within our policy. Similarly to Rice and UT, we do not require SAT subject exams. That is something that you can choose to self-report on your application. Same with AP scores, and we will continue to honor the same AP scores for credit requirement that we have in the past.
Okay, sounds great. So the next question would be, if your university chooses to make these tests optional, will a good score have a smaller weight in comparison to what it used to before?
So oh, were you going to say something, Sonia?
No.
Okay, sorry. So at Rice University, we use a holistic admission process, which means that we look and consider every element of the applicant, and all factors of the applicant are considered to be equal. So even in light of what's going on right now, that isn't a change to how we have evaluated applications. We've always evaluated applications and applicants in the same exact way, and we're planning to continue that holistic evaluation. So having a good SAT or ACT score is only one component of your application, but it isn't the end-all be-all of who you are as an applicant. As I often like to remind students, remember, the SAT and the ACT is who you are for one Saturday out of your life. Should that be the whole totality of who you are as a person and as a student? It isn't. And so we use that same approach when it comes to looking at you as an applicant. We want to see, are you preparing yourself and challenging yourself to the best of your ability? Are you engaged within your community? Are you really delving deeply into the subjects that you're interested in? And are you going to bring all of those involvements and passions to the university community? So when it comes to testing, it is one component, but it isn't a make it or break it factor in the admission process.
I just ditto to everything Brandon said. Brandon said it all, and so there's no need to repeat, but it is just one part of that bigger picture. So do the best you can. Use this time right now to study for them if you can fit that into your online schedule, but it's not the make it or break it. It's one of the many parts to our holistic review process.
We also utilize a holistic process in order to evaluate candidates. I think that more specifically with this question regarding the test optional part of it, there are institutions that are test optional or test flexible schools where you may choose to not submit the test score, but you need to submit some other material in lieu of that. At this point, Trinity is not going that route, although full transparency, we are still working out a lot of details since this is a relatively new announcement for us. But there may be schools that are test optional in which an interview may be required or an additional essay or something else to replace that test score. We are not anticipating that to be the case. And so we are going to continue need to review our applicants holistically and look at everything that the candidate provides to us. We do offer admission interviews already, and so that is one of the components that I would heavily encourage students to utilize, even virtually, so that may be helpful as well.
Sonia, you're on mute.
This is the characteristic of any good Zoom call, right?
So true.
Sorry,
So
it's
very
like,
true.
there's so many technical difficulties. So the next question is, will your college extend ED or RD decisions for application deadlines?
So as of right now, because once again, this is always an currently this is an evolving situation. So of course it's open to, adjustments based off of what's going on currently in the world. But as of right now, Rice University is still maintaining its admission calendar, meaning that our early decision deadline will still be November 1st and our regular decision deadline will still be January 1st. So we're still going to maintain the same timeline currently.
For UT Austin, we have a priority deadline and our regular deadline. We don't have early decisions, early action, and our priority deadline simply means if you have everything in by that November 1st date, then you will receive your decision or a notification about your decision sooner rather than later. However, our just regular deadline is December 1st. We have not made any plans to change that, so we're still sticking with that November 1st and that December 1st final deadline, and then those test scores will accept till December 31st.
Sounds good.
We at Trinity are not anticipating a change to our timeline either. So we do offer an early decision and early action for a November 1st deadline. And then we also offer an early decision round 2 and a regular decision, both of those with a deadline of January 15th. Just quickly, I feel like I need to do the explanation of what early decision versus early action versus regular decision might mean. And all of you likely know this already, but just in case. So early decision is where a student is applying early to an institution, and that can only be to one school. And so you are making that early commitment to the school. If you were admitted, you are saying that you will indeed attend. Early action is where you are applying a little bit earlier. You may hear back a little earlier from the institution, but you do not need to let the school know of your admission decision until May 1st. And so you typically buy yourself just a little bit of time. Regular decision, as evidenced already by the deadlines that we've given you, tends to be a little bit later in the calendar. And we, as an institution, will let students know of their admission decision by April 1st at the latest. And then again, you would need to let the schools know by May 1st where you would be attending. So thank you for bearing with me on the quick explanation of what all of those are. Just want to make sure that I'm offering some of those details too.
Thank you. Sounds great. And I think the next question is probably the biggest one that a lot of us kids or students have in mind is what would you advise students to do in this time where many have lost opportunities to build their resume, i.e. things like internships or research opportunities that they would have otherwise completed if we were in a better situation?
Great question. What I definitely want everyone on this call to understand, and to all the students who are watching, is that we are definitely knowledgeable. We're going to definitely take this into consideration. We understand that you don't have access to the same things that you normally would have access to, and that's not going to negatively impact you in this process. We're going to evaluate you within the context of where you're coming from, the circumstances that are going on in the world. So please know that you're not going to be at a disadvantage because of what is going on with the global pandemic, because everybody is being impacted by this. With that also being said, though, I definitely encourage students to take advantage of what is in their immediate control. You still have the ability to do volunteering. I know a lot of amazing students who are helping to make masks for healthcare workers, and they're using that opportunity to do that. I know a lot of students are still able to conduct research by really delving deeply and doing self-study of the subjects that they have interest in. So really it is about using what is available to you at this particular point to once again really delve deeply into what it is that you want to study, the things that you really do enjoy. I mean, some of y'all are making some really amazing TikTok videos. So, hey, that's also something that you can do as well. So really, it is a matter of, once again, doing the things that you can do during this time. And once again, it's going to be indicative of the characteristics, your character, your personality that you're going to bring to any of our colleges and universities. But no, you're not going to be at a disadvantage.
Yeah, everything that Brandon said, definitely take that into consideration. I will add on that we're looking in the environment that you are in and how you are challenging yourself within that. We know some students are having to teach their younger siblings or take care of their younger siblings, or possibly helping your parents or guardians in some capacity. We understand that. So when you're applying to these colleges, it's important to let us know all factors, right? So we could take that into consideration as we holistically review. But get creative though. If you're at home and you're like, I'm not doing anything but just making TikTok videos, do get creative, learn about your passions, dive into them. I have a piano in here. It came with the house and I'm like, should I be learning the piano? Yes, I probably should be, right? So dive into your passions, see ways that you can help out others or do some sort of internship online. And there's a lot of ways to do that. The great thing is, during this pandemic, we have technology at our fingertips for the most part. Not everyone does, and that's okay. But if you do have access to it, take advantage of it. If you are into coding and you know how to build websites, look at your community and see what communities have some very outdated websites. Reach out to them and say, hey, can I update your website? I'll do it as an internship. If you want to pay me, that's cool, right? But that's okay. I just want to use this as an opportunity to learn more and to develop a resume for the colleges I'm applying to. Or if you want to be a future teacher and you maybe have a younger sibling, or reach out to your local elementary school and say, hey, can I jump in and help teach a lesson one day for one of your teachers, or can I co-teach, right? Take advantage of those opportunities. There's so many things you can do being at home. At the same time, don't stress yourself out. We are in a pandemic. You're in an environment that's different, right? And do not stress yourself out thinking, I need to be doing all these things. No, it's okay if you don't. We understand that, and we're taking it all into consideration as we're reviewing your application. So don't come too hard on yourself, but know if you're able to do something, try to do it and get creative with it.
All right, so first of all, Brandon, I want to see these TikTok videos that I assume that you're making during this time, right? So I'm going to have some high expectations for those. I think in all seriousness, and I'm echoing a little bit of some of those sentiments from both Brandon and Veronica. This is also, I think, first priority right now is maintenance of mental health and making sure that you have those coping mechanisms that you need to have in order to survive this. And I use the word survive pretty specifically rather than thrive, because that's kind of what we're doing. We're maintaining right now. Some of us might be, doing algorithms and other things that are beyond what I'm doing right now, but I am definitely in maintenance. And I think we've got to have the same expectations for our students. I do think that one of the opportunities, maybe a silver lining that this has provided us, is that we are often so busy that we don't have time to think about how we could spend that free time. And that's something that I'm actually really curious to hear from you guys. What books have you picked up that you never would have picked up otherwise? What talents or hobbies might you have gone back to because you haven't had time to bake your grandma's chocolate chip cookie recipe and now you've perfected it and can whip them out faster and better than she can, right? I mean, any of these things. And I know that all of that sounds a little bit trite, but I think that we have had the opportunity maybe to get back to things that we don't have time for. And I want to know what students have returned to, and maybe what you are exploring that you haven't necessarily because you are so overly scheduled.
Kind of to add on to that, also, the way that people have been able to use technology to connect has also been amazingly. So if you're, starting up your own group, to kind of talk about different things, that's also a great thing to do in light of what's going on, because we're finding new ways to connect. So once again, anything that you're doing during this time can definitely be demonstration of what you're doing during this time for yourself and for everybody else.
Sounds great. I think that's the end of the 20 minutes.
So we have time for a couple more questions, but
Okay.
I actually have you on the chat as well. You guys already addressed some of them, but there was one question that came up a couple of times regarding the essays for applications and content in those essays. Is there anything that you guys can address to that?
Yes, I'll definitely say essays are my favorite part of the application. It is where I finally get to hear your voice and your unique perspectives. And so when it comes to the essays, they're definitely an important part of the admission process. And what I like to tell students is to really take a step back from their application, get that kind of 10,000 square foot view, look at every single part and really think about what's missing. What is that important part of you that hasn't been stated? Whatever that is, that's probably going to be a great topic for the essay, because it really gives me a sense of how you think, who you are, and what you think really makes you special. And it doesn't have to be anything extraordinary. I mean, I literally had a student who wrote an amazing essay on how boring they are. And I know you're thinking, boring, not the best way to describe yourself. But the reason why they wrote about it was because they felt they lived a very sheltered life and they wanted to go to a place that would give them great experiences. So I really got a sense of who they are and what they wanted from their experience in a college or university. So yeah, this is a great time because we're all having to be very self-reflective. So you got a lot of ideas that you can use for your essays.
To add on to a quick follow-up to that, what do you think? Do you think it's a smart idea for kids to use their essay to write maybe about what they did during COVID-19?
Veronica, do you want to start on that one?
Yes. Do you want to write about what you feel comfortable about? Do not feel the expectation is to write about COVID-19. However, if it's really impacted you, tell us about it. If you're like, well, it didn't really, I got to hang out at home, it was boring, then don't write about it. Write about what, I'm sure you've been thinking about what you wanted to write about even before this all got here. And so consider writing whatever your heart desires. I don't think it's a right or wrong answer, but I would say write about it if it has really impacted you, or you now view things a little bit differently, or what that might be. But it's not, I wouldn't say like we expect every essay to write about it. Also, a lot of universities will have a special circumstances essay. And so you can also use that as an opportunity to tell us how it has impacted you, whether that's, hey, I couldn't get involved because of A, B, and C, or learning on the computer was a whole lot different for me and has impacted my grades. You're going to want to use that special circumstances essay to talk about that. And then you might want to use your just normal essay topic to really focus on, oftentimes it's tell us about your environment, to tell us about you and your passions. Really focus on that, and then possibly talking about COVID-19 in that special circumstances essay if it has impacted you in any way from your learning or just getting involved.
So one of the application platforms that you all will likely encounter next year is the Common Application, and they have actually already announced that within the Common Application platform there will be a second area that really is asking students to address the impact of COVID-19 on your schooling, on home life, on any impact that may be there. And there's also a place for your school counselor to have that same discussion, how it has actually impacted the curriculum and the school coursework and those kinds of things. So I think for many colleges, we probably will provide some sort of avenue for you to address that directly. But we also want to know about you in the essay. So make sure that whatever you talk about, even if you're boring, right? Really make sure that you're reflecting that essay back on your characteristics and your strengths, or maybe even your concerns, but make sure that it is not necessarily just about an event and a scenario, but that you have it centered back on who you are, because we are looking for that personal statement.
I want to say something real quick. I saw one in the chat And I might need to pull Gail in for this. I saw in the chat somebody was asking questions about virtual college tours. I can tell you every university is basically doing some sort of online virtual tour, virtual sessions, and there is a list somewhere with all of these schools. I was trying to look for it. I don't know, Brandon or Gail, if you have it somewhere that you can pop it in the chat. I'm trying to look for it online, but if you do happen to have it, drop it in there for the students.
Yeah, I don't have a particular list, but one of the things I definitely would recommend for students to do is for any of, and I think Gail just dropped it in there, so that's great. But for any of the schools that you're interested in, definitely go to their websites and see about signing up for a virtual tour. Many of us are doing virtual information sessions where you're able to get more information about that individual school. So you also have those opportunities to interact with schools directly through these virtual options, even though you can't be there in person.
I will try to actually put that file in there, Veronica, because you're right. There's like a nice compilation of all of the schools. The one that I actually shared is more informational videos from different schools that have representatives that live in the Houston area. So I threw those in there as just one more resource, but I'll try to look for the other one as well.
Thank you, Gail. I knew Gail would have it, everyone.
Wonderful. I really appreciate it. I want to thank you all for sharing that insight. And I know there's going to be even more questions that come up in the break rooms. But first of all, a virtual round of applause for all of our panelists and for Sonia, our moderator. And with that, and we have some folks on that were listening in on Facebook also submitted some questions, but they were similar to the ones that you guys already addressed as well. So we're all set on that end. Thank you for everyone that tuned into the live stream. This will conclude the live stream, and now we'll move on to the second portion of our event.